Hi again, welcome to ChessBase Workshop. My name is Steve Lopez. Thank you for clicking the link and joining us. Every now and again I'll do a search and wind up doing an article or a video on it where you do some strange searches looking for chess oddities, weird things that happen in the game of chess. And this will be one of those videos, but it's not just looking for weird stuff for the sake of looking for weird stuff. There is a point to this video. And that is that sometimes the game as you find it in the database doesn't tell the whole story about what actually happened between the two players. I'm going to show you an example. I'll make this more clear as we go on. First, we'll go to Mega Database 2011. We'll right click and select search. And what I want to do is a material search. And what I was looking at games with multiple queens on one side. As you know, or most players know, because I see this argued on the internet a lot. I don't know why there's always an argument here, but it's the old argument of when you promote a pawn, can you promote it to anything, or does it have to be a piece that's already been captured? Now, 90% of chess players know that when you promote a pawn, you can promote it to anything. It does not have to be a piece that's currently sitting off to the side of the board, but you see it argued all the time online. Very strange. So consequently, you can have 9 queens. You can have your original queen plus 8 additional queens, 1 for each pawn. It's possible, not bloody likely. However, you do occasionally come across games in which one player has more than 1 queen. Sometimes 3, 4, or more. I'll show you. We'll set up the search. We're going to go for 3 to 9 queens. Ignore colors, I don't care which player has the multiple queens, and we'll click OK. And we immediately start getting games. What I found interesting was that the first game in the database in which this has occurred was in 1987. Going to go to this game down here. It was played in 2003, and when you double click on the game and load it, it jumps right to the position in which at which that occurred in the game. So, for example, we're looking for multiple queens. It'll jump right to that point. But I want to find a spot here in this game, particular place. There we go. Here's a point where arguably black could quit here. You've got a queen against a rook. Black does have a couple of pawns, and neither one of them is a passed pawn. So black is pretty well cooked. It gets worse for black, though, because the king moves, black comes here, queen comes here, king comes down, and now this is it. I mean, black is done. But the game goes on for about 14, 15 more moves. And you have to wonder why. Why would anybody play on in this position if they were black? Well, watch what happens, and this is where it gets crazy. I mean, this game gets nuts. Watch what occurs here. Now, anytime that you have a king, a couple of non-passed pawns against a queen and a king, it's mate in something. I mean, there's a forced mate here for white, period. Black is not going to make progress, so white can basically have his way and mate black. White can mate black with no problem here, but the game goes on. And this is weird. Why did he not play pawn takes pawn and then advance the pawns? I mean, you're left scratching your head here. White plays this. And this is interesting. Watch what the black, well, we'll back up a couple of moves. Watch what the black king does. Now you get to the point where you're starting to ask yourself, how many queens does white need? You've got 3. Do you need more? Well, apparently so. And white winds up with 4 queens against a lone king. This is a really strange game. The first thought that I had, the first question that popped into my head was, why is black playing on here? I mean, going way back here, why is black even continuing this game? Because and I understand there are some players that don't like to hang it up. In fact, back when I spent a ton of time in chess clubs, we always had this dictum, this expression, make them prove it. Don't resign, make your opponent enforce the mate. Make them prove that they've got a won game. Now, jumping ahead, you would think, okay, well, maybe black is going to make him prove it. But, when you have 4 queens on the board, I think the point is made. It's conclusively proven. So what is black about here? What is black trying to do? And the first thought that I had in trying to answer that question, I remembered an article I read, it's been close to 20 years ago, I guess, in which Victor Korchnoi was talking about how having multiple queens can be an impediment, a detriment. That if you have 2 or more queens, you can accidentally stalemate your opponent because of the number of squares that the queen covers on the board. So I'm thinking maybe black is playing on because he's hoping that white is going to stalemate him with all these queens. But something interesting happens, and I'll show you what goes on here. You see that white's not even moving his queens. He's moving his king. Now the queen comes over. Black makes a move, and then the game is over. So when you look at this game in a database, you might be thinking, well, what, did black suddenly just make a move, king e3, and come to his senses and realize he's up against 4 queens and decide to resign here? And I don't think that's what happened. You have to look at this game. I mean, really look at it, and suddenly you have another answer and a sense of what actually went on here. The first thing that pops into my head at this point is, with king e3 and game over, black has made the last move, the game ends with a white victory. You start thinking, oh, wait a minute, his time probably ran out. I'm sure that's what happened here, is that black's time ran out. And we have further evidence in this game that both players were under time pressure, because once we back up a whole bunch of moves here, and there's, like I said, there's evidence. Rook comes off, pawn comes forward, pawn moves ahead. That's a time scramble move. Otherwise, you'd probably just cop off the pawn on a5 and march that pawn forward for the victory, because realistically, you can get your queen onto a square pretty easily where you don't have to worry about black taking your pawns. Those pawns are going to be protected by that queen. So that looks like a time scramble move to me, and this is further evidence. White is just making a move as fast as possible to make a move as fast as possible. So let's cop off a pawn, let's cop off another pawn, then we'll get the pawns moving ahead. And the other piece of evidence now occurs, by the way, when we start looking at what black does. The pawns start moving ahead. Black can quit anytime. Black has a dead loss game here. Black cannot lose this game unless white somehow can force a stalemate. So black is just shuffling the king back and forth. And what we're looking at here is just a flat time scramble. Black is making moves just to eat up clock time. And white's doing the same thing. Otherwise, why would you need 4 queens? White's doing the safe thing. Instead of accidentally stalemating, instead of trying to push this game forward, I'll just start promoting pawns, making moves. So you've got 2 players, both in time trouble. Each of them is trying to make the other player's clock run out. And that's why you have this really strange game where white winds up with 4 queens, and there's no checkmate, just the game ends after king e3. What happened was black's time just ran out. This is one of those cases where I really wish that we had annotations to this game that gave us the times on the clocks, if somehow that would have been possible with electronic boards and the new digital clocks that can hook to boards and whatnot, that maybe there would have been time information provided for this game. But my point of this, albeit short video and not terribly instructive, is this: that when you're looking at a game in a chess database, sometimes you have to put a little thought into it, particularly when you're looking at a raw game score like this one that doesn't have notes, that doesn't have commentary. Why did this game end up the way it ended up? And this applies to every game that you play through in a database, not just this one. You can frequently find clues in games as to why they were played the way they were played. It doesn't necessarily get spelled out for you in notes, in annotations, in commentary, in symbols, colored arrows and squares, whatever. Sometimes you don't need the annotations. Sometimes all you need is, two brain cells to rub together and take a look at a game and think about it, and you can figure out why it played out the way it did. And there was our clue. Our big clue was right here as we play forward. The king shuffling just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That was our clue that this game was a time scramble, and it also explains why we have this bizarre occurrence of 4 queens against a lone king. The answers are there if you look for them, and that's the point of this video. When you're playing through unannotated games, just look very carefully at them, and a lot of times things will just jump out at you if you sit there and think about them for a little bit. Well, until next time we get together, I'm Steve Lopez for ChessBase Workshop. Please do have fun.